Whether anybody like it or not, this issue of mowaa opening or preview that they intend to do that was disrupted by some boys, which a lot of us called Agbero. Whether you are for or you are against, I believe in this 21st century, it's a thing that shouldn't be associated with we, the Benin, who are known for peace. But a lot of persons have the opinion that probably those boys were mandated by Okpebholo-led administration just to make sure that they intimidate some of the diplomats that came. But the next video you are going to see will give you a proper insight of what really happened. Because a lot of persons are speculating that the governor was aware. How come he never told them to put a stop to it? Now, you are going to see the shocker of your life that they met with the governor, and the governor told the organizer, one year Nacho, that there is need to put a pause to whatever opening ceremony they intend to do, simply because there are so many controversies. He has set up a committee to look into it. But instead of them to wait, they still went ahead. Are you still now going to blame the boys who came to disrupt them? Because whether anybody like it or not, our revered monarch, our God King, went to that same government house to lodge a complaint. And a committee was set up to look into it. And instead of them to pause for a while, to make sure that every controversy has sparked up as a result of this mowaa is resolved before they can do whatever they intend to do. Instead, they went ahead. And we also saw another video where the diplomats went to pay courtesy to our royal father, by the second. If the organizers didn't want to boycott the processes, how come they never paid him courtesy visit from the beginning before going to that preview? You are coming to do a thing that has to do with culture, tourism. And the main reasons why mowaa was built in the first place because of the artifact that was being repatriated from overseas. And you all know that those artifacts, some of them, if not all, are in the palace. So how come you guys did not see the need? First of all, seek the royal blessing from palace before going and do whatever you intend to do. So if you watch this video carefully, you will know that they were just being stubborn, just to prove a point, so that to give that same Benin, who has been known for peace over the years, a bad name. Hear them out.
Be aware of the controversy and perhaps can give us a little more light on why precisely we saw what we saw yesterday.
Good morning, Markwe, and thank you for having me this morning. Well, if honesty were to be served, there wouldn't be need for controversy, because your introduction captures the nexus of this particular altercation, so to speak. There was plan in 2018 by the governor of Edo State then, Godwin Obaseki, who said he was giving the Oba a birthday present by pronouncing that the Benin Dialogue Group had concluded to build Benin Royal Museum as a befitting birthday present, and that will be completed in 3 years then. You know, from 2018, it will have ended in 2021. And along the line, they set up what they call the Legacy Trust, Benin Legacy Trust. From there, they changed it to Edo Museum of West African Arts. And by the time the artifacts were coming, Germans returned 1,200 artifacts. Netherlands returned 119 of those artifacts. And UK, Sweden, Italy, they all returned different artifacts. And the then governor, you know, in trying to warehouse the artifacts, was now in contention with the Oba of Benin. The Oba of Benin had to approach the then president, late Muhammadu Buhari, who said no, the Oba should be the custodian of artifacts stolen from their palace. And by so doing, went ahead to write a letter officially to the Oba and also gazetted that particular decision. So the National Council for Museum and Monuments had to warehouse those particular artifacts in one place at the Ring Road in Benin, close to the Oba Palace. Now, that angered the then governor Obaseki, who now decided to convert the Edo Museum of West African Arts to Museum of West African Arts, removing the E, which stands for Edo, and converted it to a private trustee headed by one of his former staff, Philip Iheanacho, who works with Afri Invest, the London office. Now they started building, receiving money from international donor agencies, government of different, Germany, America, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, Belgium, quite a number of them. And the state government also invested 3.8 billion in what we saw in the records. And the land that he ceded to mowaa happens to be the location of the Benin Central Hospital, which was built in 1803. They demolished that hospital, demolished the mortuary, and gave them almost about 10 plots. It's quite a huge land. And they started building this mowaa. So there has been some kind of, quiet rumbling, so to speak, between the monarchy and those who were building this. And that is what snowballed into what you saw 2-3 days ago when they were trying to do an in-house opening of that particular museum.
All right, so, that was what was it the opening of the museum that caused controversy? Is that what we saw? Because we do know that assurances had already been provided by the Edo state government. I don't know if our producers can show the visuals that we saw. It led to, I think, workers at the museum, first of all, being evacuated. We saw that particular visual. And then we now saw a group of young men. I'm reluctant to call them names because I also saw that the police, there was a police official who was walking with them and they were chanting, Obaga Tokbe, he said, and they were responding. So it was saying that they went there in the name of the palace to cause whatever disruption that they had gone there to cause. Was it that the assurance that the state government, the new state government had given to them about, wanting to, assuage the feelings of the palace wasn't sufficient assurance?
Well, the point must be made very clearly that the government had interface with the drivers of the mowaa, in this case, Philip Iheanacho, and cautioned them to apply a little bit of brake in order for us to resolve all the gray areas. First, what we did was to reduce the size of the mowaa in terms of the land allocated to it. And it will interest you to know that the CFO of that land is bearing Edo Museum of West African Arts, which they later changed to Museum of West African Arts for whatever purpose that was meant to serve. So the governor met a couple of times with the palace and also met with the mowaa people and told them that, well, because of all of these gray areas, postpone your opening, let's sit down, let's resolve all of these gray areas so that in the interest of peace, we can get a solution or a way forward. But I think on their own, they decided to shift the opening from Monday, which was yesterday, to Sunday. And incidentally, the governor was not in Benin City. He was in Auchi attending a Thanksgiving. And we had not envisaged that there would be an opening. It was later we were seeing visuals of some boys chanting slogans about Tokbae and all of that. It's just a way to respond to the disapproval of what mowaa was doing without carrying the palace along ab initio. You can't discuss issues of museum, artifacts, bronzes, and what have you in Benin Kingdom without factoring the palace as the nucleus of that kind of discussion. But for whatever it is worth, the organizers felt that they are doing a private trustee kind of a museum on a palace ground, ceded to them by demolishing the central hospital premises and thinking that they were doing some kind of favor for the Benin collective. But I think, first thing first, when you want to put up, an edifice to promote a particular idea, you have to essentially make sure that you fulfill all righteousness in terms of your procedure, your land acquisition, your land, your building, your architecture, the purpose for which you are building such, and the factors that should matter to you. And you can't discuss culture and tradition in Benin City without discussing the monarchy, because that is the epitome of our cultural heritage. Whether you are from Benin City or otherwise, it is a kingdom that has retained its sovereignty, for years, over 800 years. And so if such a thing was happening and you are not factoring the king, tempers are likely to rise. And that was exactly what happened. What the governor has done now was to set up a committee headed by Senator Adams Oshomole yesterday to look into the remote, and immediate cause of all of this and come out with a recommendation. Meanwhile, the State Assembly is also looking into the issue to grant people the opportunity for public hearing so that they can also come at a solution. We don't want to be seen as trying to disrupt a process that has not followed due process. At the same time, we also want to ensure that the royalty, the Benin Royal Museum or the palace, is properly treated with discipline, respect that it deserves, as the epitome of culture and tradition in Benin City.
All right,
so,
Mr. Afegwa, just a moment.
That's exactly, yes.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts for us because Mr. Ogbeide Ifalui Isibo, who is a former commissioner for digital economy, science and technology, has since joined us in Abuja studios. Good morning, Mr. Ogbeide. I was going to ask, whether you agree with his own account of events leading up to where it is that we are. But this controversy, which started during the last administration, seems to have now continued into this administration, giving rise to what we saw yesterday. What's your account of the story?
Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me. I would like to first of all posit that we should not allow misinformation, petty politics, lazy leadership, and unhygienic politics destroy development in the Benin Kingdom or in Edo State. If we're having to prosper our economy, if we're having to improve the lot of our people, and an administration has thought it wise to bring in development to the Benin Kingdom and to that extent Edo State, every Edo person should have a buy-in into what is happening. Sadly, a lot of wrong information deliberately has been peddled that has permeated into the hearts of many people by this administration, and it is preposterous because a government ought to be a continuity. There ought to be some levels of layers being laid when a new administration comes on board.
So what is the misinformation? Let's get to it.
Thank you. I'm going to get to it. First of all, the Benin Royal Museum and the Museum for West African Arts are two exclusive events, are two exclusive structures. The misinformation is that they are going about lying to the Edo people, lying to Nigerians, that the returned artifacts are in possession of the Museum of West African Arts. And that is not true. In November of 2021, France returned 26 treasures to the Oba of Benin. In June of 2022, the Germans returned 1,130 artifacts to the Oba of Benin. In July of 2025, Netherlands returned 116 artifacts to the Oba of Benin. This is public information. All the returned artifacts are in possession of the monarch, as gazetted by President Buhari. So there's no contention over the possession or the whereabouts of the returned artifacts. And the Oba of Benin, in his wisdom, had stated that the Benin Royal Museum was to be built specifically to house the returned artifacts. What the Museum of West African Arts has in their collection has absolutely nothing to do with the returned artifacts. What they have built there is a research institute, an archaeological campus, to help for research and promote West African arts, not Edo arts, not the Benin arts only. And so the misinformation, which has been deliberate by this administration, is to deceive the people. The day the Supreme Court gave judgments to the administration, we saw it on video, Adams Oshomole telling the governor to immediately revoke the Museum for West African Arts. That has been the narrative peddled since this administration came aboard. Whatever the previous government did, there's been a deliberate and consistent witch hunt to destroy whatever he has done. And what we're saying is this: you can hate Governor Obaseki, you can have animosity against him, but you should not, because of your hate for him, destroy development that has come to Edo State and to the Benin Kingdom. The Museum for West African Art is built to employ 25,000 Edo people, directly and indirectly. I doubt if the present Edo State government has that amount of employers in her coffers. But now this is investment that has come, and this is not private investment to that extent. These were donations that were made. Edo State made a donation of 3.8 billion naira to the Museum for West African Arts. We had fundings as gifts from the Mellon Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the British government, the Dutch government, and several other personal individuals making free will donations in good faith for the good of the people to promote arts and culture. The idea was to have Benin City to become the fulcrum of West African culture, so that art lovers around the world, when they want to enjoy West African arts, they came to Benin. That is an advantage to the Benin Kingdom.
Well, you have said that this is some misinformation peddled by the current administration, but some people will say that this information had been out there before even this administration came in, because it was seen that something irked the Oba of Benin. Something did not sit right with him, so much so that a dispute had to be taken to the presidency, and the president had to say no, the Oba of Benin should be the custodian of whatever artifacts were returned. So clearly there was already a line for dispute there. Do you agree with that?
It appears to have been so, and that is why the President Buhari gazetted that all returned artifacts must be domiciled with the Oba of Benin. And the moment that was settled, there was no contention about that. And it was even after then, there were conversations. In fact, in 2019, the Oba of Benin had inaugurated and appointed members of the Board of Trustees for the Benin Royal Museum. He had Professor Wole Nshorika, Nduka Baigbana, and several other individuals in that committee. And in 2019, the Edo State government had budgeted 500 million naira in that year's budget for the building of the Benin Royal Museum. How that went down is information I do not have, but the fact is that the misinformation...
Where is that museum being built?
The Benin Royal Museum? Well, at the moment, in June of 2025, that's this year, the daughter of the Oba of Benin, when we received 116 artifacts from the Netherlands, she made a public statement reading a letter from her father telling the people that the Oba Akenzo Cultural Complex, which sits opposite the palace, will be converted to the Benin Royal Museum. That was not information from government, that was information from the palace. So now we're in a strait betwixt two when they come to peddle this wrong information, because if the king through his daughter had said that the Oba Akenzo Cultural Complex will be converted to the Benin Royal Museum, where then is the discrepancies? At this time, the Museum for West African Arts had already been pre-commissioned 7 months before. So the attempt to make it look as though instead of building the Benin Royal Museum, then government built the Museum for West African Art is very funny. It wasn't government built. It was an investment by renowned foundations all across the world. So,
right.
so the point I'm trying to sit with for the Edo people and for the Nigerian people is that the Museum for West African Art had absolutely no business with the returned artifacts which were to be domiciled with the Benin Royal Museum.
All right, I know my colleague Ayo wants to jump into this conversation. Ayo, over to you.
Thank you, Mokwe. The first question I'd like to ask, the same, former commissioner in the studio with you. You said that there are two different institutions, the Benin Royal Museum and the mowaa, Museum of West African Arts. What do we have inside mowaa as different from what we have inside the Benin Royal Museum?
From Bitcoin to XRP to Shiba Inu, Kraken's got over 500 assets.
What we have inside the Benin Royal Museum.
And it makes my job even easy. At the moment, there is no such structure as the Benin Royal Museum. And that means that all the returned artifacts are still domiciled with the monarch in the palace. So there's no issue of where the artifacts are. Everybody knows where they are. And the king has not accused anybody of coming to take the artifacts from the palace. What we have in the Museum of West African Arts is artwork of archaeologists and creatives from the West African sub-region. It is not Benin art, it is not Edo art, it is not Nigerian art.
Okay.
I mean, we saw the preview a few days ago of visitors from across the world come into mowaa to have an understanding of what West Africa has to produce. So
all right, just a second. That is noted.
Yeah.
That is noted. Let me quickly ask Mr. Fegwa. Mr. Fegwa, can you confirm that fact? Oh dear. Because it's necessary to find out whether or not that is the truth, and I believe that we'll still be able to get him back. But then still back to you, there is this information from 2023 where the former president, he said unequivocally, and I quote, he said that the artifacts from Europe and other parts of the world should be handed to the Oba of Benin, being the one who should have, the authority for them to be in his possession. Is this something that the government of the day was pleased with, or was there a difference or difference between the Oba of Benin and the governor at the time?
Well, there was no discrepancies as to where the artifacts should be situated. And to what you just posed right now, if those artifacts were taken to Benin, I'm not very sure if they were, they would certainly have been in the possession of the monarch. And that is not in contention. And even the government at the time did not have any dealings to do with it. Now the accusation is that when the artifacts were returned, monies were returned with the artifacts, and the monies were then diverted. That argument has to be addressed, because if the federal government had gazetted that all returned artifacts be given to the Oba of Benin, who would then give artifacts to the Oba of Benin and then give the money to the Edo State government? That did not make any sense. Yesterday, the EU ambassador made it expressly clear to the state governor that all donations that were made by foreign bodies, foreign organizations, and local individuals were given for the creation of the Museum for West African Arts, and not any other nomenclature, because the allegation that the Edo State government went to source for donations using the Benin Royal Museum as the infrastructure to be built, it is wrong information. And the EU ambassador made this expressly clear yesterday to the Edo people. And we heard yesterday evening that the governor was going to revoke the CFO for the Museum of West African Arts. And we also heard the Minister for Culture and Tourism issue an advisory appealing that let us not allow tensions rise over this matter, because Nigeria as a nation was already dealing with negative publicity from the United States. and now having to have the members of the EU have this same trouble. How can it be, sir, that 4 ambassadors were locked up at the Museum for West African Arts, harassed, threatened, and intimidated by unscrupulous Edo elements who went there to make trouble? How can it be that as a nation, when it is our duty to make sure that ambassadors are protected, they come to Benin, a kingdom that is so respected across the world, and then we're having this expression of complete buffoonery, making mockery of the people, making merchandise of our nation, and causing a disgrace to the Edo people? We are not hoodlums, we are not touts, we are civil people. If people came into your kingdom to inspect arts, we welcome visitors. Whatever happened that day was disgraceful, and we must situate it the way it is. That is not who we are, and we must be very careful the way we go about this thing. Let's not drag Nigeria into the gutters even worse than it is right now because of our primitive politics and lack of hygiene in politics.
All right, I see that Mr. Afebua is back now. I do not know if there are areas where, you know, he will take objection with your account of events, because we do understand that there have been areas talking about financial, because you are saying now that the British,
the EU ambassador,
the Benin Royal Museum and the Museum for West African Art are 2 separate entities. The Museum for West African Art is a private entity, or does it belong to the people of Edo State?
Well, I won't say it belongs to the people of Edo State, because these were donations that were made from across the world to build a facility for West African arts, not specifically for the Benin people. And so to the point where he was trying to say, oh, the name was changed from a mowaa, that's the Edo Museum, to Museum for West African Arts, the idea of the governor was to use a mowaa to promote Edo State. In most of what we had in government then, if it was Edo Best, if it was Edo Jobs, if it was Edo Net, the governor always wanted to have Edo at the front. But when the time for a mowaa came, those who were bringing their donations told him that they wanted a more holistic view for West Africa. They wanted a more global audience for West Africa. But if you localize it to Edo, that does not give those other West African nations that amount of buy-in into that project. And that was why it was changed. There was no reason. I mean, the change in nomenclature was just to make it better, to give it more audience and more visibility to a wider reach.
Okay, good. So you do say that there were 2 separate museums, but it would seem that perhaps this second museum was conceived after the fallout with the palace. Is that correct?
That is not true, because in 2019, when the Oba of Benin appointed Board of Trustees for the Benin Royal Museum, that was the same year the Edo State government had budgeted 500 million naira for the building of the Benin Royal Museum. And what was expected was that in collaboration with the Benin Royal Group, there were a couple of people who came to meet. The idea was that let us build this facility so that when the artifacts come, when they started coming in 2021, we will have a place to house them. Somewhere along the line, there must have been, you know, a back and forth that didn't make that happen, because the money that was budgeted by state government was not drawn down, and it was supposed to be. So that's a different argument right now. However, the Edo State government did not build the Museum for West African Arts.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's taken. I think Mr. Afebua is back now. Mr. Afebua, I'm sure that you have heard all that Mr. Ifalu Yisibo has said. I do not know if you would like to respond to some of the issues. I mean, he does say that there are gray areas. For instance, the fact that there are 2 separate museums, but it does appear that that has been missing in the explanation, in the current explanation of the Edo State government. Is that intentional?
But I lost you quite a while in the last 10 minutes, but I was able to pick a few things that your guest in Abuja studio was saying, and I think some people will be better off as comedians than actually addressing the critical issue about mowaa and all the ancillary factors that has led to this discussion. The point must be made very clearly that you cannot be discussing about Benin Kingdom without the kingdom getting involved. Your guest is talking about Benin Kingdom, but there's no kingdom in the kingdom. You're in the discussion. You are talking about mowaa. What made them to change mowaa to mowaa? Why did they remove Edo from mowaa? Edo Museum of West African Arts. Why did they remove the E? Then you say the government donated 3.8 billion. When has the government become Father Christmas that it will donate 3.8 billion for a cause that will not benefit it? Why do you have to cede the entire palace ground, housing a central hospital, demolishing a mortuary and all of that for a museum? People need to be well and healthy to visit museum. So you did that, ceded a whole land, a whole expanse of land to them in the name of advancing the cause of mowaa. Then you choose Obaseki's staff, Philip Iheanacho, to preside over Benin's cultural, culture and tradition, where you have the man, the power.
I think that you missed really a significant chunk of what he said. But a significant chunk, or lost in that chunk, was he said that there are two separate museums. The Benin Royal Museum is separate from the Museum of West African Art, and that the Museum for West African Art was funded solely from international donors who wanted a more holistic look, and that's why they had to change the name from Edo Museum of West African Art to the Museum of West African Art. I was asking if you are aware that these are two separate entities, and if the Edo State government is intentionally still maintaining that they are one and the same.
They are not, Mark, they are not. You have been following the discussion very correctly, particularly the historical antecedent of that museum. The point was, Governor Obaseki promised Oba of Benin on October 20, 2018, at the second year anniversary of the Omonoba Nebekwa Polopolo by Ewari II, that the Benin Dialogue Group had resolved in their meeting in Netherlands to build a Benin Royal Museum as a fitting birthday present that will be completed in 3 years. As soon as the artifacts were coming and they were being supported by finances, Obaseki changed midstream, wanted the Oba to sign a letter ceding authority and power to him, and once the Oba refused that, he went bonkers. And that was the genesis of this present altercation. So when they started Edo Museum of West African Arts, midstream, they changed the name to Museum of West African Arts, knowing full well that putting Edo will incorporate the Benin Palace. Now, the government of the day gave them land free of charge. It's a private trustee who said government donated land, palace ground for that matter, gave them 3.8 billion according to the man who is there, which we also capture in the records, and allow a private entity to run with several millions of euro and dollars donated by different organizations. Then, do you build a museum for a kingdom without the kingdom getting involved? Number one. Number two, the artifacts you are talking about, those should be the natural motivation for a museum. Artifacts that were stolen in 1897, for which the German ambassador yesterday told us that they returned 1,200 artifacts. The Netherlands ambassador told us yesterday that they returned 119 artifacts, and several other ambassadors that we hosted yesterday. So what we were telling them was like an eye-opener, because the impression created was that the Benin monarchy was carried along in all of this. So we had to move them to see the Oba yesterday. And the Oba explained the genesis of this crisis and what have you, because as soon as the Oba refused to sign that particular letter, Obaseki started his altercations with the monarchy, tried to balkanize the kingdom, wanting to even impose some kings in some local governments, which was an abomination. Before the Oba now hurriedly went to meet President Buhari, may he so rest in peace, to obtain permission officially by letter and by gazette to be able to warehouse the artifacts.
Mr. Peba, we really need to...
The CFO granting that place is bearing Edo Museum of West African Arts, not mowaa.
Mr. Peba,
So when you do a project and that is shrouded with all kinds of infractions, all kinds of fraudulent sharp practices, you are likely to have this kind of response from the public.
Mr. Febo, I just want to find out, because we're totally out of time now, I need to find out if a resolution has been reached and whether all the parties have come to an understanding. Will there be an understanding going forward, or will we continue to see incidences like what we saw over the weekend?
I didn't get you. Can you please?
I was asking if, a resolution has been reached, because you said that ambassadors were hosted yesterday, etc. I'm asking if you're working towards a resolution, or we'll continue to see incidences like what we saw on Sunday.
I think I've lost you.
Oh dear. Well, I don't know, I hope that we're able to get it, but we're totally out of time. What do you want to see the Edo State government do in this instance?
Well, thank you. I want us to stop being proud of what we should be ashamed of. I want us to rise above petty and primitive politics and unhygienic politics and have the Edo people suffer for it. I want us to be able to focus on leadership and governance and stop this hatred for the past administration. I want us to be able to continue progress. Paul preached the message, Apollos watered, and God gave the increase. Obaseki built A. You can build B, let somebody else build C. The attempt to continuously want to destroy whatever Obaseki built doesn't help the people, doesn't help the economy, and doesn't help our politics. When they make mention of the Central Hospital that was demolished, that hospital was built 1902, before my grandmother was born. And by the early 1900s, in 2000, 2001, nobody was visiting that place any longer. It became a caricature building. And so Governor Adams Oshobele rebuilt a specialist hospital just by that hospital. And so when they come to tell us that, oh, you destroyed a hospital to build a museum, that makes mockery of what the truth is. And we as Edo people, we're all ashamed of what happened a few days ago. And we are still grappling with the consequences. And we are hoping that we can rise above this, come together, sit on a table, appeal to His Excellency, the Governor of the state, for us to come together and move forward. Edo people should be his focus. Edo progress should be his focus.
I want to believe so, that will be at the heart and at the center of all that will be discussed on this matter. We have to thank you for coming, Ogbede Faluyi Sibo, former Commissioner for Digital Economy, Science and Technology, and also the Organizing Secretary of PDP in Edo State. I have to apologize to Mr. Kasima Fegwa. His connection did not let us take his closing comment, and we're totally...
Whatever show of shame they put up out there by some boys, and anywhere anybody want to look at it, whether you like it or not, it's not a thing at this time we should embrace. But if you check properly, you will discover that the organizers of that opening or preview of that mowaa was the cause of them all. Because the governor make him to understand that whatever you intend to do, you can put a pause to it first. Let's clarify the issue on ground. But you guys still went ahead and all of that. Now, we are sounding as if maybe we are more intelligent to bamboozle some persons who have not gone to school. 2018, talking about Benin Royals Museum. 2019, some diplomats, ambassadors, July 8, 2019, were received in Government House. And as at that time, they were still discussing about Benin Royal Museum. After that, we heard another news yesterday where our revered monarch said that the Obaseki brought in certain documents through the back door for him to sign so that he can concede all of those artifacts to him or relinquish power or the ownership of those artifacts. And he refused. In the end, his son was part of the board of trustees. A man whose purpose the museum was created, the idea of it was created before. He removed him and put his son. And today, a little issue is ensuing between a father and son, and which I know soon then by the grace of God Almighty and our ancestor, peace will come back in between the two of them. Now, after using the Benin Royal Museum and the artifacts to gain more grants, telling the international donors on the need to build a befitting museum for every artifact that's going to be brought back from the international community that was stolen in the invasion of 1897. You sidelined the palace and you started talking about mowaa, from mowaa to mowaa. If we must also tell ourselves the truth, one of the conditions placed by those international communities that has been housing an artifact that was stolen in the invasion of 1897 that doesn't belong to them, for them to return it, is that we must build a befitting world-class museum so that those things, they won't bring it back and be stored in one place where it will be making any positive impact. Those were the conditions, and that was how the same international donors were so much interested in bringing out their money towards building a befitting edifice for those artifacts that were stolen in the year 1897. But as at the time, those persons were now donating, Obaseki on his own, due to the fact that he wanted to claim ownership of it, which he couldn't, now try as much as possible to convert it. And that was the issue, the impressions some of those boys were trying to create, that most of you shouldn't just come with the notion that some of the artifact that was stolen in the year 1897 was the one you guys are coming to see. Nothing of such. Anyway, whatever you think, drop your comment on the comment section once again. Share and follow the page. For the record, if as at the time Obaseki entered as governor of the state, building of World Standard Museum were part of one of those plans, things he tend to do, that would have been another different thing entirely. 2018, you were talking of Benin Royal Museum. 19, you received some diplomas in Government House, July 8th, and you were talking about Benin Royal Museum. You bring paper, come, the monarch not sign out, you change everything overnight. You just be like person where they say, me climb up. You reach up, finish. Instead of you to paint the name where they won't know you for, you go change the name for up. What we are saying at the moment, everybody should come down to the drawing board and make sure that we clarify things before the opening will take place. If not for the stubbornness of the organizer, probably that show of shame wouldn't do that day. If for no happen.